It's time to move into the improvisation part. That's where a lot of the action takes place, and that's where we use up a lot of time of the performance. That's how we pass the time playing the song, so we want to know how to do this. And one element that I didn't really expand on, and which, as a matter of fact, I can't really teach in any kind of lengthy way, is the language of bebop. This particular tune, and many tunes from this era, though they are vehicles for jazz improvisation, and particularly in the language of bebop. So this is something that you might, if you're not familiar with or only have passing familiarity with, something that you'll definitely want to pick up. And the idea here is to play line improvisation, but using tools that we heard about, that we know about, passing tones. And lots of chromaticism, which is kind of at the heart of the language of bebop. Lots of approach notes. Passing tones. If this is a scale note and this is a scale note, that's a passing tone in between them, so you can go in either direction. Approach tone usually comes from below. This note is not in the scale either. Here I use two approach tones. C sharp going to D, and the B flat going to B, or the chord G. And so, again, without the ability to really do anything expansive on this, to elaborate on it, it's for most people, especially people who play only a lead instrument like a saxophone or any kind of horn, this is a subject of a lifetime of study. So there's obviously a limit to what I can offer here. Nevertheless, one thing that I can suggest you doing is, if you have developed some basic concepts for the language of bebop, make yourself familiar with the chord progression and start playing entire choruses of only lines. And as a matter of further exercise and to challenge yourself, try to play, at first anyway, a continuous stream of eighth notes. I'll try to demonstrate, and I did a little bit before. I'll try to do it right now. Maybe I'll slow it down a little bit. And maybe oftentimes I play approach notes or pickup tones. Let's say that this is the downbeat of the beginning of the tune, this D note right here. So I might play 1, or just one note. And at the appropriate moment, make the harmonic change that leads you to the next chord. So in other words, in your line playing, you will be able to outline to the listener the chords as they go by without playing any kind of chords. I'll make an attempt to play a chorus of that right now, and then we'll finally get into blending all these elements together. So let's start with these pickup notes. And when I hit here, it's the downbeat of the song. So let's go. 1, 2, 3. there was the downbeat of the next chorus. So I don't know if you want to transcribe this. I don't know if it was great or not. It was something. I didn't play continuous. I intended to demonstrate the continuous stream of eighth notes, but I couldn't help myself but play actual rhythmic patterns. So in fact, building on that, let's take it a step further. And what I attempted to do now, and it kind of failed, is to play continuous eighth notes because I'm in the habit of trying to actually play music rather than playing an exercise. But now I'll do the same thing, but instead of playing the intended continuous eighth notes, I will play with play my solo with rhythmic patterns. It will be self-explanatory once I start playing. You'll play a rhythmic figure, answer it with a rhythmic figure that kind of a call and response, and then that whole call and response becomes a phrase, and then that phrase can have its own call and response type phrase. So let's go. I'll start the same way. And when I play this D, it will be the downbeat of this song. Again, when I hit this, that was the downbeat of the next chorus. As a matter of exercise, you can try to play the chords over what I just played and see what that sounds like. And again, feel free to transcribe. Again, I don't know if I did anything that was worthwhile here, but might be interesting to look at anyway. So this much so far for the language of bebop, and I will include these elements in what I'm about to do next and finally get into what I do in the song. And I thought what I would do here is play in 4 measure segments. So in other words, G, 2 measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. I think that those are nice enough units. They're not too long, but they're long enough to demonstrate what happens when you switch from a harmony to a harmony. And I will try to blend many of the elements that we already talked about, which is different voicing with some bass movement, some lines with some intervals, arpeggiation, and what I will try to do is, I referred earlier in the lesson to these stepping stones in the lake or in the water, like this one, this one, like this one, like this one, and show you how I am able to create little melodies, little phrases, little musical blocks, again, including all the above, bass, bebop, chords, intervals, in limited areas. I think it's a good idea to try to do this in small, limited regions, because to look at the whole guitar, I think it's just too much. At some point, the better we become, we get a better view. But sometimes it's nice to limit yourself just to a localized area and see what you can do in that area to create some music. So let's get started. First 2 measures, G major 7, then G minor 7 to C7. And I'll do some work in this area right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And every time I finish a phrase, I'll restart it and make a loop out of it, or I'll pause on the beat number 1 of the next phrase. In this case, it's going to be an F. play a chord, take a chord, and on, let's say, on beat 1, play a chord, and then play a line, and then play another chord on the downbeat of the next measure. That's exactly what I did here. And again, trying to find melodies within my confined region. In this case, I'm just holding this drop 3. I can play it like that, and I can have the thumb play the bass. Don't forget to use open string. In G you have combine all these notes, open strings, and it makes a beautiful sound, especially if you blend them. Okay, let's move on. Here's the top of the chord. I always try to think about the harmonic change as an important rhythmic spot where you want to make some kind of a musical statement that highlights that difference. So one of the best tools to do that is, especially if you have a major going to minor, is play some phrase that has the major third a lot, in this case the B note, and at the exact right moment change it into a B flat, which is the 3 of the G minor 7. When I hit this, I highlighted the 3 of the C. So I think people call these, I'm not very studied myself, but people often refer to these as guide tones. So the guide tones of well, any note can be a guide tone weaving through chords, but the most famous one that people always work on are the 3 and the 7 against the G, the major 7 and the 3. Then as they change, both of those go down half a step. And as the chord changes to C, the F further becomes an E. Because that's the note that really makes the difference, the harmonic difference that jumps out when you go from G minor to C, is the F going to E. And similarly, the G major to G minor, the B note is what makes the difference. So that's what you want to highlight in your playing. All right, let's jump to this. And I made a mistake there, and I somehow managed to turn it around. It's a funny thing. If you're, let's say that you're in G, and you somehow find yourself on this note, which is not in the scale, turn it into your advantage. Make it into an approach note going to a scale tone. Bad note into a good note, and then it's like, oh, the impression is he meant that all along. You know, you can kind of fake your way through that, because if you move it half a step, if you're on a bad note, move it half a step, and you'll likely be at a good note. So that's this position. Notice how many notes I'm getting out of this position just by holding down this G. Switching bass notes. This is the G7 from the 1 to the 3. All these are rhythmic statements. Every time you make some kind of a change at a significant rhythmic spot, let's say, strong beats 1 and 3, that is a rhythmic statement. And if you do it with good notes, well, that's a bonus. So, but the main purpose is always the rhythm. Let's see here. Almost a mistake. I landed here, but I had enough time, so I made an excuse out of it. It's like, oh, that's a nice motif. Do it again. Let's see if I can recreate my mistake. Something like that. It sounded a little bit better the first time. You can't repeat happy accidents, I guess. So again, I had the experience of saying, okay, that sounded right. Let's move it half a step. And not only does it sound right the next time, but now it's perceived as a rhythmic motif. A rhythmic figure that you did with these chords. Okay, let's go to this position, just for the heck of it. That is your F. Let's, in order to explore additional positions, I'm going to move through the 2 now and do the next section, which is basically the same thing, but now in F. So F, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. F minor to B flat 7. All right. Again. And I've been using a lot of lines, so let me add other elements. Again. I'm going to the next section, actually. Although that it doesn't actually go there. I wasn't even thinking about what I was doing. I just played another 2-5 in the next key. So why don't I combine now? I'll combine the first 4 measures with the next 4 measures. So starting in G. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next 4 measures. E flat major 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. E flat major 7 for 1 measure. And then 1 measure, 2 beats each of A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, 1 measure. That's 3 measures so far. And the final measure of this section is a 2-5 in G. A minor again to D7. Put together. So this section brings up something unusual. 2 chords that have nothing to do with each other harmonically. The E flat major 7 to A minor 7. So, well, so when you're playing, what you're doing here, what I did here, this is a chord note, in fact the root note of the E flat. That's an E flat note. And at the exact right moment, this is what I said before, make the harmonic change to a note that fits with your next chord, in this case the A minor 7. And I play an E natural. And in jazz, it's typical that a minor chord is preceded by a 5 chord that has some alterations in it. So the sharp 9, flat 9, flat 13. So those are the typical sounds that you will hear in front of a minor chord. One idea would be now to cycle these two chords. Of course, just now expanded that particular progression, but keep it simple. Keep it to D7 and play short phrases. Just like that. Take these two chords and just repeat them, and every time try to do a little and play a chord, let's say, just for exercise, just play a chord on the downbeat. Taking this approach and expand it to all the chords that you encounter, break it down to not 3 or 4 chords, just 2 chords back to back. Cycle E flat major 7 with A minor 7. Taken as such, here are these 4 measures. Again.